r/askreddit. What is the creepiest thing you've heard someone say? I worked in child protection years ago and was advising a man why sexually abusing his 8-year-old daughter was a crime. His response I will never forget: "Why can't I taste the seed that I planted?" I'm pretty unshockable, but that gave me chills. How do you stay neutral enough to advise those kinds of people? No lie, that's legitimately one of the worst things I've heard this year. I had a relative that worked for CPS. She was doing an investigation and asked a man if he had inserted fingers in his daughter. His response was, "I was checking to see if she's pregnant." Hey sweetie, are you lost? 4 guys asked me one day while I was walking around town at night, waiting for a bus to arrive in half an hour. Was just walking around with headphones on to pass time, and suddenly 4 guys walked to me. One of them reached for my shoulder and asked that. Never has I ever been so scared before. Luckily, they noticed my response, stepped back and was like, "We just saw you walk by a few times and wondered. Sorry for shocking you," and they were actually really nice. Edit. I was supposed to take a bus a bit past 5 in the early day. I live in a hamlet outside town, so the only bus I could take to town left my hometown a bit past 4, so I had roughly 40 minutes to spend. I would consider 4-5 nighttime, but maybe I'm in the wrong. Edit. I live in Denmark. I was 20 at the time, 25 today, and they were on the way home from a day night, so a bit tipsy, but not drunk, I think. Don't know, I'm so hard to tell. AWW, that one ended up nice. I was walking to a convenience store when I was 14 through the woods on this trail called a green belt. An older guy wearing no shirt, huge beer belly, teeny bicycle shorts was riding his bike coming up behind me. He turns around and starts coming back towards me. I see that he's jacking off, like dick in hand from the bottom of his little shorts. I'm so scared as he approaches me. He says, "It's okay. I don't want to hurt you. I just want you to watch me come." I screamed and ran as fast as I could. Edited to add, I called my mom from a payphone and she picked me up. I told her what happened. We called the police and they came over and I gave a description. He was an older white male in his 50s, and he had a large butterfly fairy tattooed on his side. They found him and arrested him. He had done the same thing to another girl my age that day. I'm 40 and I never forgot that creepy line he said to me. What the fuck? Yuck. When my friend and I were around 14, we were walking down a major road to get some Starbucks. There are lots of businesses on this road, so there's cars parked on the street and people walking around. We saw a guy in his car jerking off and filming himself with a big video camera. This was in the late 90s. He saw us notice him and smiled and winked. We found it amusing back then, but holy shit, that's creepy looking back. Your mom told me to pick you up. Mom used to pick me up from school, but she works a busy job and if she couldn't be there, she'd hire a driver to pick me up on super rare occasions, or if a co-worker friend was able to, they'd pick me up. One day this guy drives up to where I usually wait and tells me he's here to pick me up. I tell him my mom is picking me up. He said she hired him to pick me up and said she told him what I looked like and that I fit the description. I am pretty young at this point, but something didn't sit right, so I asked if I could call mom to confirm. The guy's getting more impatient, saying I should just hurry and get in the car. Mom then rolls in her car right after, and I basically run into her car. I watch as the guy just drives off. I hope your mother realized how dangerous her arrangements were and implemented a serious change of plans. My parents used to do the same thing, except every day before I left for school, she would tell me a new password for the day. If she needed a friend to pick me up, she would tell them the password. I was only allowed to get in their car if they knew the password. Even then, if I was uncomfortable with it, she said I was always allowed to go back into the school and wait until she could pick me up. Something very similar has happened to me. When I was a kid, my mom would also sometimes send a friend to pick me up from school. We had a password thing though. Every time they would pick me up, I had to ask a security question, like what's my mom's favorite food, etc. Then one time an older dude came to my school and said that he was a friend of my mom's and would take me home. When I asked him a security question, he just took off without saying anything. This happened when I was like 9. I was drinking water while in line at a 7-Eleven. And a shady ass dude told me I must have really healthy kidneys and they might be worth a lot to the right people. I know it's all in how it was said, but that's actually pretty funny. I'd be like, yeah, they're worth a lot to me? Yeah, you almost cannot go to a gas station these days without some creep lurking around. I am a rather large man, so I don't have to deal with much outside of getting asked for money. At one point this obviously homeless dude came up and started his sob story pitch. I had been working something like 60 days straight with some night shifts mixed in. I had some 36+ hour shifts in there as well, and I was very short on sleep and short tempered at the time. I was very ragged and probably sporting the Forrest Whitaker eye look due to exhaustion as well. I interrupted him after about 4 seconds. Why does some motherfucker have to ask me for shit every time I come to a gas station? Fuck off out of my face. He apologized and scurried off. Moral of the story is be crazier than the crazy. Or be a large man. A taxi cab driver during our conversation on my way to work. You are such a beautiful lady. Good thing I know where you live and where you work. I was so shocked that I ended up inventing a story about a boyfriend being in the military. Never say the military. That will just let them know they are away regularly. Say champion MMA fighter or bear wrestler. Heard guys planning a gang rape on our lunch break. At first I thought they were just being stupid, with very poor sense of humor. Teenagers, early 20-somethings. I was not in, to say it lightly. But I just tried to ignore it. But it escalated and they started to talk details, and by the end I was very sure they were planning to carry it out in the parking lot after the girls' shift. Yeah, I reported that pretty quickly. Didn't make many friends, but fuck. I couldn't live with myself if they did that shit. What the fuck? Jesus. That probably wasn't the lunch break experience you had planned. Thank God you were around to report the bastards, though. This gay guy straight, a GF, used to work with after I turned down his advances for the 20th time. Fine, I'll just force a few shots down your throat and then I can do whatever I want to you. Needless to say he was uninvited from after work beers that night. He should have been uninvited from work altogether. That's a little past sexual harassment, it's a threat of rape. I had a similar experience while out at a bar celebrating a friend's birthday. This drunk gay guy kept hitting on me, and I, being straight, politely declined. But he wouldn't relent, saying things like, come on, let me buy you a shot, I bet I can change your mind. And dude, I tried being polite, now I'm going to be firm. No. And leave me alone. And then the physical touching, putting an arm across my shoulders and something like, no one knows what a man likes but another man. Come on, let me show you what you're missing. And I just glared at him and asked if he wanted to be carried out on a stretcher, and he finally got the hint. After that night I kind of understand what women have to put up with. I know exactly where you live, it looks like a nice house. Said by a customer who randomly thought telling me they knew where I lived would spark up a conversation with me. It did not. Luckily the person they were with read my facial expression of what the actual fuck and told them to be quiet. I said almost this to someone once. I was working in a bookshop and a lady came to the counter and said she almost walked out with a book because she forgot she was holding it. But remembered in time and came to pay. No worries, it happens all the time. I laughed and said, don't worry, I know where you live. She looked at me weirdly and left. The thing is, her parents live across the street from my parents. She's the oldest in her family, whereas I'm the youngest. She is a couple of years older than my big brother and has a brother the same age, 8 years older than me. She also has younger twin brothers who are the same age as my sister, 5 years older than me, so they all used to hang out. She ended up getting married and only moving a few houses away. So I did in fact know where she lived. She came back like 10 minutes later and said, I've just realized who you are, so that made it a lot less creepy. I know exactly where you live, it looks like a nice house. Friend, please Gary, shut the fuck up for a second. You're a brave lady being out here all by yourself. Said to me in the laundry room at my apartment complex right after the light bulb burnt out, leaving me in complete darkness with a very creepy dude. I was 20 at the time and terrified. Lol, that's when you start acting as crazy as fucking possible. Predators don't like psychos. Can't predict them or something like that. Gross. That reminds me of the time I was walking on campus, wearing my favorite dress, just minding my business such as I do. I swung past the dining hall and this old guy right as I pass goes, "Good things come in small packages." I remember half glancing back to see what he was talking about, but it was just me and him. It didn't hit me until much later that day what he was actually saying. I don't think I wore that dress for at least 2 months afterwards. Put on your coldest, most predatory smirk and say, "I was just thinking that about you." Then tilt your head and bare your teeth. This happened when I was 14. My dad and I went to hang out at the county fair. While walking around and looking at all the trinkets people were selling and whatnot, I kept noticing the same dude every time I turned around. He smiled and waved a few of the times. I didn't think much of it at time and thought he had me confused for someone else, but looking back, it was my instincts telling me something. We eventually reached a grassy area in partial shade and my dad asked if I wanted to rest and split a lemonade. I said sure. Once my dad was out of sight for a few minutes, this dude approached me from seemingly nowhere. He was at least in his 30s, if not 40s. At that moment, I knew something wasn't right. He asked me how I was doing and if I was enjoying the fair. I gave generic short answers. He kept stepping closer to me and I was stepping away. I wanted to turn and look for help, but I had a feeling that I shouldn't take my eyes off him. Then he said I looked cute and I immediately said, "Yeah, I'm underage." He smiled and said, "That's good. I don't mind." Chills. I told him to leave me alone and he said he wasn't doing anything. I said, "Bullshit." That just made him laugh and say he liked them feisty. Without meaning to, throughout his stepping towards me and me away, he was positioned to where his back was towards the general direction my dad left in. Well, once my dad bought the drink and stepped out of line, he saw what was going on and was coming towards us with his angry dad walk. I didn't say anything because fuck this guy. My dad got close and asked what was going on and I said the guy was hitting on me, to which the guy said he thought I was 18. He was backing away at that point. I snitched and told my dad what he said when I told him I was underage. Immediately, the guy bolted and my dad shoved the lemonade into my hands. Priorities, chasing the guy down. He caught him, threw him to the ground, and gave him a few punches and kicks. People tried to intervene, but once my dad shouted, "Fucking child molester," they stood back and let it happen. The guy was able to escape and we did report it to the police when they showed up after being alerted about the commotion. Somehow, my dad wasn't arrested for assault. I don't know if it was considered protecting his child or if the officers were okay with it. The lemonade tasted pretty good after that. It wasn't the first or only time someone was creepy to me. It stands out to me because it was broad daylight out and we were at a fair surrounded by people. The guy also had to know I was with my dad, so I don't know what he was thinking. Your dad is awesome. Give him an extra hug today and tell him a mom says he did good. Also good on your instincts too. Former friend staring at toddler dancing and said she looked sexy. I yeet it out of there. I'm glad you said former friend. Yikes. Hello, FBI? I have a potential pedophile to report. Welp, gotta die some way. Spoken by my 4-year-old niece when an ambulance passed our car with sirens blasting. I mean, she ain't wrong. My uncle has been watching you through your bedroom window with his binoculars. My friend told me this when I was 15. She lived down the street from me. Thank God she told you about it. That's fked up. No, I like it. Said by my now ex as he forcefully shoved his hand up my skirt after cornering me at a mutual friend's house party. I had told him to stop, and this was his response. That's when I knew I had to get the fuck out of there. Oh, well, as long as he likes it. You. Tucking my little brother in, parents were out, he's 5. Go to close the closet and he, out of nowhere, says he can only see me if it's open. Me what he doesn't answer me and just stares at me. I open the closet, look through it and find nothing. It only has clothes. Anytime I ask him about it he says he doesn't remember. I couldn't sleep that night. Twist, he was just talking about the family dog, and it meant his eyes. He can only see me if his eyes are open. Yup, That's definitely what he meant. I won't have any problems sleeping tonight. My little sister turned round to me a few weeks ago and deadass told me that I was going to have a really bad nightmare that night and that I should keep a big bottle of water by my bed. Needless to say, I had a lucid dream about my skin catching fire and I swear to God I felt like my skin was burning off. The water helped calm me down when I woke up. Nobody wants to be the first to die. Hahaha. Context: I was at a petrol station and saw a drunk homeless man stumble in and try to buy a cigar. The cashier told him, sorry, we don't sell single cigars, just packs. The homeless guy made a guttural noise and slurring every word said, give me one cigar, and the cashier again refused. So then he muttered under his breath, nobody wants to be the first to die. Haha, in a totally sober sounding voice, no slurring. Then he put his hood up and walked in a straight line right out the door with purpose. I was waiting outside the mall for my mom to pick me up one day, and there were a couple of men and a woman, probably early 40s, rough looking but didn't seem dangerous or anything, about 10 feet away from me talking and smoking. I wasn't paying too much attention until one of the men pointed at me and said I wouldn't mind having sex with her. I think I was 11 or 12. Was working at a preschool for a while, ages 3-5. Most of the kids were normal for their age, acting up here and there but relatively normal. All of them except for Ian, our oldest this year. He was a little weird, very quiet, lacked social skills, and just had unnerving odds about him. One day I was cleaning up an art project we had the kids doing when Ian approached me with a sheet of paper with 4 numbers written on it. 4, 7, 2, 1. He hands it to me matter-of-factly and just stares at me. Best practice tells us to engage with the kid and ask about his picture. So I say to the kid, wow, Ian, these are really good numbers, did you write these? Are these your favorites? Ian looks at me weird and replies, no, the man told me these are the numbers for the bomb. He then smiled, turned and ran over to play with blocks before I could ask him more questions. For some reason it just freaked me the fuck out at the time. Dude, remember this. This is a hint. One day you will need to deactivate a bomb with those numbers or something. Me and a friend planned a perfect rape. This was in a group chat, about 231 people, and the guy was serious AF. The perfect rape is when the victim pulls out a .45 and shoots the rapist twice, once in the balls and again in the face. A young woman sat down in my lap and tried to seduce me by telling about a dead body that she and or her friend had cut into pieces and put in a freezer. This was at a school, so she wasn't drunk or anything. She didn't get lucky that night, at least not with me. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake. So, you better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout, I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. I've heard many a creepy thing in my time, but I guess this one comes to mind cause it was pretty recent. Walked in on an older co-worker having a conversation with another older co-worker right when they dropped the following comment. I mean, everyone's first experiences are with a cousin or a sister or something. To which my other co-worker responded, oh for sure. I can't tell you how many times I was smacked by my parents for trying to get frisky with my younger cousins. I go to a summer camp, and one year I remember one kid had a really bad problem with sleep talking, well, muttering really. One night, we all woke up to him screaming, going silent, and then saying, no one can hear you scream at the bottom of the lake. Working at a pet store, I had plenty of customers saying they wished they could take home all our animals. Then there was this one chick who wanted to express the same sentiment, but she worded it like this. I wish this place would burn to the ground, so I would have an excuse to rescue all these animals. We didn't sell her an animal. My brother saying he will kill me on the other side of the door I'm trying to hold shut while I'm trying to call my mom to tell her to get home right now because Oliver has a knife and he will kill me and I'm scared. I was my lunch break and went to Walgreens and I was looking at some nail polishes. I notice a relatively normal man just standing there staring at me. After about 30 seconds, I finally look up and say, can I help you with something? He just stared at me, seriously right in my eyes and said, you are such a beautiful baby, in a dead, flat tone. I yelled at him and was like, get the fuck away from you. You need to get the fuck away from me right now. Then quietly street first he was like shut the fuck up, then started yelling you need to shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up, I walked away. Later that same day, I was getting my hair done by my sister who worked at a salon about a block away and relayed the story to her. She was like, "That's so weird. I was on the phone outside of work earlier and some guy just power walked over to me and was like I told you to shut the fuck up. AHHHH. But seriously, how fucking creepy is that? You are such a beautiful baby." Me and my friends were walking back to my house from being at the park the whole day. We were around 13. It was kinda rainy but it was fine cause we had an umbrella. Then a guy pulled his car over. It was some old green estate. He rolled down his window and goes, "Hey ladies, are you okay that you need a lift?" All of my friends stayed silent. So I go, "Hey no, we are okay." THX things get repetitive and he says the thing again, but he said it more aggressively and kinda forcefully. Me and my friends, we terrified, so we start to speed walk away. As we start to walk away, the guy bumps his car onto the pavement, so we almost couldn't get around him on the pavement, and goes again, "Do you want a lift ladies? It's not great weather." I think it was the way he said it that made my friend run, but we all followed until we eventually got back to my house. It all happened so fast we didn't remember the number plate. But me and my friends could give a description and we did. The police said they couldn't do anything and they would just take note of his details. God knows where this is guys now, but it's kinda scary to think about. I was quite well developed at age 11. My neighbor's brother asked my mum to give me his number once I was legal. My brother and I drove to a bike shop an hour or two away because he wanted to look for something. While he looked for it, I wandered over to see why this old guy was cackling at the TV. It was 9/11 and the first plane had hit, and that's how I found out about it. This guy was cackling at the replay, like he. He looked like a guy who lives alone and goes into town once a month for groceries. I was being sexual harassed at my last place of employment. The guy was creepy AF all the way around. He said creepy things to me all the fucking time. 1. If he paid me $5 would I touch his ass? 2. He would always ask me for hugs. He asked one night not long after I came into work. I completely ignored him. He started screaming at me, "Are you ignoring me? YTF are you ignoring me?" 3. We had weekly staff meetings every Thursday for an hour when our shift started. I was already supposed to meet with HR that time, so I was already on edge. He made it a point to come stand directly behind where I was sitting. When the meeting was over, he leaned in real close and whispered directly in my ear, "Good morning, cupcake." I jumped a foot. There's a guy in one of my Facebook group who's always been desperate for a girlfriend. He's super lonely and self-depreciating to a point where he's definitely putting it on for attention. Once he said he buys 2 cinema tickets and will wait around to see if a lady, he always refers to women as ladies, "I want to meet a nice lady," shows up alone and he'll offer her a ticket to watch the movie with him. While this might seem cute at first, I would never accept a ticket from a stranger, let alone then watch it with them. Definitely made my skin crawl. My godmother took her 4-year-old granddaughter to the pet shop and some guy is buying a big fish. The granddaughter comments on it, and the man says to her, "I'm going to fuck its mouth when I get home." One evening, I thought I was alone in the locked cathedral, practicing the organ for a forthcoming recital. The sexton came up behind me, I didn't see him coming, tapped me on the shoulder, and said, "Don't let the organ get too big. You'll disturb the bats in the steeple." Sure enough, after he left and it grew darker, bats started flying around the nave. They had been nesting in the steeple, directly above the 32 feet pedal pipes. I was using those stops at the time. A 13-year-old boy. Everything you love will turn to dust. He was a very angry, cynical child and used to pick on the other kids, but after that comment I didn't see it as innocence anymore. More like future Ted Bundy. He also tried to kill his little brother. Very intelligent kid, ended up going into politics.